Hello there, welcome to Lessons Learned. I'm Sherry and this is number 4 in my Longarm series. I have the Moxie XL from Handi Quilter along with the Pro Stitcher Lite software. Today this is video number 4. I believe I said last week that was number 4, but that was in fact number 3. But today in number 4 we're going to talk about pulling up our bobbin thread and also basting down our quilt, or at least getting ready to baste it down. We're going to do some basting, but it's a little bit different on a long arm. So I'm going to show you all of that. So you're going to want to go ahead and get your machine powered up, and you don't have to power on your Pro Stitcher Lite tablet if you don't want to for this little exercise in pulling up the thread and basting. So first of all, let me get the camera angled to an area where you can see what I'm doing. One of the first things you're going to want to do is make your stitch length longer. So this is set at 10. So to make those stitches longer, I set it down to 5. So I just take my minus here and get it down to 5. I think I mentioned in my number 2 video when we were doing the loading on of a quilt that I generally use 5 for basting and 10 for stitching, sometimes 11. So the whole 5 and 10 thing keeps me straight and I don't make mistakes that way. So my stitch length is down to 5 stitches, or I should say it's up to 5 stitches per inch, which is a very long stitch. You can make it longer than that if you want, but I wouldn't suggest making it shorter than that. You could. It's up to you. You can just play around with it until you find what feels comfortable for you, but this is what feels comfortable for me. So this is on your machine screen where I did that, and I have my machine set in precision. We'll talk about this manual precision and cruise some other time, but that's what I generally have mine set on all the time, and I just don't change it. But those definitely do have valuable functions. Alright, so let me get you down to where my needle is so you can see how to pull up the bobbin thread first. Also, I want to show you that I have my sandwich on. If you need to know how to do that, just go back to video number 2. But I've followed all of the steps that I do for that to get this quilt on, to be able to demonstrate the basting and the bobbin thread pull up. Alright, so let me get you down here where you can see this. Alright, so first of all I just want you to see how that, here's my leader, here's my backing, here's my batting, here's the beginning of my quilt top. So I just want to stitch down about 1/4 of an inch or less even, and just barely catching in the edge all the way across the top of my quilt top. And I start in the middle of the top and I run my basting stitches this way and down the right side, over on the right side where you can't see just yet, and then I come back to the middle again and go left and then down the left side. Now, unlike a normal quilt sandwich, you know, you're not going to be able to baste all the way around. So as you roll up the quilt with your quilting passes that you do, the rows that you make, you'll rebaste, not rebaste, but you'll be basting the right and the left sides continuously as you go. So to do that with my glide foot here, and I have this little opening here that's about 1/4 of an inch, so I just put the edge, this edge, to the edge of my quilt top, and then I know that it's going to be less than 1/4 of an inch. So I just kind of follow that across like that. Alright, but first we have to pull up our bobbin thread. And that's important always. Don't ever not pull up your bottom thread. Your up here on the handlebar to your left, the outermost button that has an up arrow and a down arrow is your needle up and down. So that's what you will use on your left handlebar. So you need to hold on to this hold on to your top thread while you go down with your needle. Okay, so that's going down in there to be able to pick up your bobbin thread. But to get it, you have to take your thread and just kind of floss under once you pull back up, like this. So it will look like this. Okay? And then as you pull that out, and you want to pull this out, and you'll see your two separate threads. Okay? Now if you want to manually knock that off, you can just move a little bit backwards and forwards and going up and down to make a knot. And once you don't feel any more play in these, you've got it knotted. Now on your right hand handle up here, you have the outer button that's a kind of like a stop and go button. It's a play and pause is what the symbols are on it, but it's the outermost button. So you would push that down with your right thumb, and since I have mine in this precision mode, all I have to do is move the machine. And see, I'm making my basting stitches. So I'm going to go ahead on over here, and I'm carefully watching the top of that little hole where the needle is going up and down and guiding it that way. And I'm also kind of giving a little pressure this way just to make sure it doesn't get bunched up ahead of the needle. Now here, I just go off a little bit and then back over to where my little glide foot hole is along this again. Go backwards and forwards. And there again, I'm kind of holding gently up here to make sure nothing gets bunched up ahead of the needle. You can also kind of, just use your common sense and don't fly through there. It'll take you a while to learn how to maneuver this without going all over the place. The first time I got it, I was just going all over the place. It's a little hard to control at first, but you learn. So I just backed up a little bit here and turned off my right hand button. I put it on pause basically, and then to knot this off, I had done my backwards and forwards, right? But I need to get that thread back up again. So I'm just going to hold here and pull this out and hold this, and then go back down in that general area where I stopped. Do your needle down on your left handlebar and back up again, and then you're pulling that last stitch up and getting that bobbin up there again. So what you need to do at this point is cut down low, and then when you pull this out, this is the stitch that you pulled up. It's folded. It should be folded in half. There's the loop of it, and if you opened it up, it's just one continuous thread. So that's how you tie that off. Now your bobbin thread is not pulled up at this point. So I'm going to go back over here and show you again. And it's important to clip all these threads as you go. You don't want any threads getting tangled up in anything. So I'm just going to go right back to that same spot again and pull up my bobbin thread, down, up, floss, and then there's my two threads. I'm just going to turn my cruise or my precision button on, right hand handlebar outer button, and I'm just going to go kind of backwards and forwards, and then do that same thing again. And you really kind of have to learn how to use your hands ambidextrously and just go slow at first. I can do this a lot faster now after a lot of practice, but at first you just want to go slow. And if you get off the path you want to be on, just go back and and go over it again. It's just a basting stitch. It's not going to show anywhere. It shouldn't show. Once you get your quilt finished, if it does show, you can pick it out, of course. So here I'm going down my left side, just kind of making a little adjustment there to make sure everything gets in there straight. And that's as far as my machine will go. See, I'm pulling and it won't go any further. So I'm turning that pause play button off, pull this out about 10 inches, come back to that same spot, needle down, needle up, pull it out, and there's your loop. Trim it down here, pull your loop away, and now you're ready to go again. That is basting down your quilt. And then as we go along and I'm unrolling this with each pass of stitching, I'm going to have a raw edge over here again. So part of the process of getting your next row going is doing that basting again. So you will be at that point going back and forth between your 5 and 10. And it's important to remember to set that back. So for example, right now I have it on 5. If I'm getting ready to start my next row, one thing I want to check and do is change that stitch length back to 10. Okay? So I'm going to go back over here and trim these threads that I left. This will cause problems if it gets down into your stitching that you're doing on your actual quilting. So make sure you go back over here and make sure you've got all that stitching and extra threads out of the way. So now you can see my quilt is stable for the first lines of stitching. Depending on what pattern that I choose, I will either get 1 row of stitching across here, or I may get 2. So if you use a small design, you may be able to do 1 row of stitching and then just set the machine back over to the left without basting and do your second row. But anytime that I have to roll this up, I have to do my basting on my left and my right. Okay, I hope that was clear. Now when you get to the very bottom of your quilt, you will have to do the same thing as you do to the top. You just start in the middle, at least that's what I do. I start in the middle and finish out the basting on the very bottom of the quilt. When you load your quilt, you've put pins in that bottom, but you'll get to a point in your quilting where you have to take those pins out before you're finished and flatten out your bottom. I take my iron and just kind of run my iron loosely over the top to flatten that back out, and then I'll have a flat surface where I can do that same basting that I did at the top. I'll do it at the bottom before I finish my quilt. So I can't show you that because I'm not at the bottom of a quilt right now, but I think you get the message. So practice on that a lot before you put an actual quilt that you want to turn out perfect. Perfect in quotation marks because we're all kind of beginners here, but yeah, practice a lot on that, and always make sure of what you're doing before you continue on. All right, that's all I have for today, and stay tuned for the next in this series, which will be number 5. And until then, I will see you later. Bye.